Wow, Leona, this is a great question, and I want to try to explain it in a video so I could elaborate a little bit more in trying to put it all into a few sentences. Um, yeah, freezing can be fatal trying to cross a busy street, and our minds have a tendency to recall episodes of failure from the past and put self-doubt in the present and can send us to a crashing halt. So we can be crossing a busy street, for example, um, overcoming freezing, and this one moment your mind says, what are you doing? You're going to fail. You're going to get killed, and it'll shut you down. Whereas those episodes, moments of self-doubt occur in everybody. In us, they trigger the panic, flight or fight or freeze syndrome that we get, at least with many of us. So, yeah, I'm thinking about this. Take it very, very seriously, and it is something that's a source of anxiety for you and for many people, and I could certainly see it being a source of trauma. So, you can be 99% sure you can cross that street, but there's 1% of doubt. Don't do it, and because that 1% could come up at any time and be for real. I think the way to address it is to make sure you have some kind of backup. We can tell ourselves one thing, we can tell our minds one thing, but our minds know. Our minds know what we're doing. We can't trick our minds for too long. We can say, I can do this, I got it, I've done it before, make this thing happen. But the mind, if you're trying to pump up your mind too much, and that self-doubt is there for a reason. It's there to protect us, and we hate it because it shuts us down. But at the same time, it's telling us something about ourselves. So if we can assure the mind that we got this, that self-doubt should not crop up. So in this case, for example, can you run across the street? So if you get to walking and you do freeze, you may not be able to get into a run. Can you get into a crawl? And that's going to sound crazy, but that's your outlet. If you know you can crawl, like if you do freeze, but you know you can crawl across the street, I don't know what you're still capable of when you freeze. Most people can. Usually it's just freezing. It just shuts down your legs, prevents you from walking. But drop to the street, you should be able to pump your arms, get your arms and legs going into a rhythm, and crawl across the street. And which is interesting, which leads into another thing, which is, maybe how much of our anxiety is caused by our fear of what people will think of us if we freeze, or what we'll look like when we get out of a freeze or whatever. And when we get rid of that fear of what we look like or being judged or how people will view us, we're free. And that's a critical way to be able to move freely again, is not caring about what we look like or what people will think of us. Think of the way we move. It's us. It's how we do it. There's no shame. There's no shame in anything. If you have to crawl across the street, get your hands and knees dirty, but you do it safely, you don't die, who cares what people think? That's what we do. That's an inventive method to be proud of. So if you can do that, then your mind knows, you say, okay, if I do shut down to a freeze, I got a backup plan. There's nothing to keep me from crossing the street. And then you'll feel better, and you probably won't freeze in the first place because you have that self-assurance, and then doubt. No need for doubt to even crop up. This is a quick analogy. So this is like in baseball, this condition is called the yips. And if you failed at something once, for example, the simple act of a catcher throwing a ball back to the pitcher is something that's so routine, and they do it hundreds of times a game, or hundreds of times per year. So it's so conditioned, and they don't even have to think about it. But once the thought crops up in their mind that maybe they'll miss the pitcher, it won't get back to the pitcher with the usual throw. It may go over his head or may throw it in the ground. All it takes is that thought to crop up in the catcher's mind, and that's enough to throw off their rhythm, natural mind and body rhythm with it that they've done over and over and over without thinking about it. And that thought comes in their mind. It creates the freeze or flight or fight physiological reaction, I guess you'd say, and it makes them get out of rhythm. And that now they change their rhythm and change the way they've thrown the ball forever. That's the yips. And it's a serious thing, and it affects players. Not many, but when it does, it's devastating. I don't know how. Probably each one addresses it differently, and there's probably a way, but that's something we can talk about separately. It's pretty interesting. But in your case, I think the baseball player would say, is to get, the thing to do is to get rid of that fear and say, well, it doesn't matter. So what if I miss the pitcher? Who cares? Who cares? We'll get the ball and get it back to him. I just look stupid, but I don't care. And getting rid of that, usually I think is enough to free the person to make the throws again. And so it doesn't allow your mind to crop up. Says, maybe I do miss a pitcher. It doesn't matter. So what? I'm not going to get into a physiological fear state because I missed throwing the ball back to the pitcher. I'm going to stay in that rhythm, and I'm not scared of the result. Stay in the process. So anyway, it's a long answer to your question, but trying to think if there's anything else I want to add to that, because it's a great question and it's real, and it kind of is a backdrop to all these things with freezing that we talk about, and fear and what people think of us, and how that affects how we move, not only how we move, but how we act and behave and think and feel, and it affects everything. So being able to completely free yourself of other people's opinions of us changes everything.